Whatever you do, don't look behind you when the flame flickers." It began with screaming, not the kind that burst from the throat like fire, but the kind caught in it, wet, ragged, choking. The sound of someone trying to scream around something filling their mouth, filling their lungs. The footage began at 11:56 p.m. Daniel Harper's handheld camcorder jittered in the wind, the rain speckling its lens like falling ash. He was already halfway up the rotted steps of the Candleman's house. His voice, shaky and cocky, echoed in the mic. "Y'all better be recording this. I'm gonna win that $50 and your stupid little dare's gonna be nothing." Lightning lit up the hilltop. The manor loomed, blackened, swollen with damp, and slumped like a corpse too long in the grave. Its boarded windows were gaping mouths. The door stood ajar like it wanted him in. He stepped inside. The camcorder caught the moment the door creaked shut behind him. No wind, just the slow, sucking pull of rotted wood, sealing him in like a mausoleum. Inside, there was no light. Only the dull infrared glow of the lens and the whisper of dripping water. His breath fogged up the lens briefly. Something creaked above. He muttered, probably a raccoon or a bat. But then he saw it, the candle. It stood on a warped table in the center of the parlor, singular, tall, half-melted, its base pooled in thick wax like coagulated blood. The flame danced, already lit, though Daniel hadn't touched it. No matches, no lighter. The candle was waiting. The air was too still. The silence hummed like a dying throat. Daniel laughed, though it cracked in the middle. Guess the ghost likes mood lighting. He stepped closer. The wax beneath the candle began to drip upward, slowly, silently, against gravity. The footage jittered violently. A blur just at the edge of the frame passed behind him, something tall, featureless, its shadow oozed against the wall like melted skin. Daniel didn't see it, but the camcorder did. The flame flickered and flickered again. He gasped suddenly. The sound gurgled, cut short. The camera dropped to the ground with a crack, lens sideways, catching only a portion of the room now. A shoe, a hand, the slow, spreading pool of something dark and thick and dripping from above. Then, wax. A soft, wet splorch as it spilled in thick ropes across the lens, sizzling, hissing. The last image before total darkness. Something pale and massive in stature bending over Daniel's body. Its face, a melted scream, candle wicks in its eye sockets. Its head, aflame. Ashwood Hill watched the town like a dying sentinel, its trees crooked, wind-stripped, and always whispering, even when there was no breeze. Everyone in Wexton Hollow knew the story. No one talked about it directly, not really. They just spoke around it, like stepping carefully over a rotten floorboard that might collapse beneath them. But the legend always hung in the air like smoke, like waxy breath in the cold. They said the Candleman lived up there. They said he never truly died. They said if you lit the candle in the manor parlor, he would appear behind you the moment the flame flickered. Maeve stood by the rusted bike rack outside Holleridge High, her hoodie up against the gray September wind, earbuds dangling uselessly. She wasn't listening to music. She was listening to Ashwood Hill. The trees whispered louder in the fall. Behind her, Iris appeared, hood off, headphones blaring something chaotic and angry. Her black chipped nails gripped a thermos that steamed like breath in the cold. "You're brooding again," she said, nudging Maeve's shoulder. Maeve didn't smile. "Did you hear about the twins?" Iris blinked. Celia and Max? What about them? They went up to Ashwood Hill last weekend. Supposedly, cops found their car abandoned, driver's side door wide open, headlights still on. Iris's brow creased. Jesus. Maeve finally looked at her. They never came back down. At that, Jay's familiar voice cut through the gloom. Come on, guys. Not this Candleman crap again. He joined them with Levi in tow, both clutching paper cups from Sprocket Cafe. Jay had that glint in his eye, the one that said he was both amused and slightly unnerved. Urban legends always spike and fall, like clockwork. Pumpkins show up, and suddenly everyone remembers the house on the hill. Levi said nothing. He rarely did, unless it mattered. You think it's just urban legend, Iris said, raising a brow. But the Harper boys' camcorder was real. The footage was found, and Daniel's been missing ever since. Jay sighed. Footage can be faked. YouTube exists. Maeve's voice cut clean through the wind. His camera was covered in wax. They were quiet then, the four of them standing on cracked pavement, fallen leaves swirling around their shoes like ashes. The silence didn't last. Iris grinned, too wide. What if we go? Jay frowned. Go where? To the Candleman's house, one last dare before senior year swallows us alive. Maeve turned toward the hill. There it was, barely visible beyond the edge of town, the silhouette of the manor rising like a burnt matchstick against the gray sky. Spend the night, Iris added. No big deal. Bring snacks, a flashlight, Jay's creepy lighter. Jay shook his head. I'm not using that. It belonged to my grandfather. It's old. Iris smirked. Exactly. Levi finally spoke, voice like a whisper too close to your ear. If we go, we don't light the candle. They all turned to him. Maeve's throat felt tight. The air had changed, subtly. No one ever lights the candle, he added, almost like a prayer. That's when he comes. A gust of wind swept through the lot, dead leaves tumbling toward the storm drain. The clouds above Ashwood Hill shifted like smoke in reverse. From where Maeve stood, she could almost see the manor blink. The Candleman's house sat slumped on Ashwood Hill like something the earth had tried to bury and failed. It was older than the town below it, older than memory. Most of the windows were blacked out with grime and rot, some broken, others melted inward like something hot had pressed against them from the inside. The air around it was dead, not still, dead, as if nothing dared to breathe here. They stood at the base of the stone steps, staring up at the front door. No one said anything for a long while. Jay pulled his hood up and clicked open his grandfather's lighter. The flame flared high before settling into a nervous flicker. I still think this is stupid, he muttered. Yeah, Maeve whispered, but we're here. They moved as one, crunching through leaves and dirt-choked gravel. Every step felt louder than it should have, like the house was listening. The front door was slightly ajar, its wood warped and splintered. Thick, tarry streaks of black clung to the handle like dried candle soot. Maeve reached out first. The door opened with a groan that sounded like a dying throat. Inside was blackness, dense and layered, like someone had painted the air itself. The moment they stepped over the threshold, the temperature dropped. Not like a breeze, like something was pulling the heat out of their bones. The entryway was tall and narrow, the wallpaper peeled in long strips, revealing slats of scorched wood. Everything smelled like mildew, iron, and melted plastic. The silence was oppressive. No wind, no creaks, just listening. Jay's lighter crackled softly as he held it aloft, casting flickering shadows across the walls. That's when they saw it. The candle. It sat on a small table in the center of the parlor, its wax pooled thickly at the base, untouched by dust. It looked half burnt, half grown, like it had been fed instead of melted. The flame was gone, the wick unlit. Maeve felt her stomach twist. Wasn't it supposed to already be burning? "Don't light it," Levi said sharply, his voice too loud in the suffocating quiet. Jay stepped forward anyway. "Jay," Iris started. "It's just a candle." He struck the lighter. The flame touched the wick. The candle ignited instantly. It didn't flicker. It roared to life with a low, throaty sound like air being sucked through a mouth too wide. And then, silence. Something changed. The walls felt closer, the shadows shifted. Levi turned his head sharply. "Did you see that?" "See what?" Maeve whispered. "I thought..." "No, forget it." But Maeve had seen it too, just for a second. A figure in the upstairs hallway, immense, still, unnatural. Jay stared at the candle like he was hypnotized. The flame didn't move, not even slightly. "Guys," Iris whispered. She was staring at the hallway mirror. "Come look at this." They stepped cautiously toward her, the candle's glow following them like a scent. In the mirror, their reflections looked wrong. Not distorted, slowed, like they were underwater. Jay's reflection wasn't holding the lighter. Maeve's eyes looked too dark. Iris's mouth was slightly open, whispering something her real self wasn't saying. Levi's reflection wasn't there at all. The hallway door slammed shut behind them. Maeve spun around. "What was that?" Jay ran to the door, pulled, yanked, nothing. They were locked in. The candle didn't burn down. Not a single drip fell from the wick, but the shadows grew longer. That's when Maeve saw it again, far at the top of the stairs. A shape. Unmoving. Watching. She blinked, and it was gone. "Let's go upstairs," Jay said suddenly, eyes wide. "We need to see what's up there." "No," Levi said firmly. "That's what it wants." Maeve looked at him. "How do you know?" Levi didn't answer, but his hands were shaking. And down the hallway, in the dark beyond the parlor, something wet moved across the floor with a soft, dragging sound. Splorch, splorch, splorch. The candle flickered, and somewhere upstairs, something began to breathe. The candle didn't burn down, not even a little. Jay had lit it nearly an hour ago, but the wax hadn't dripped. The flame hadn't moved. It hovered perfectly still, like a glass sculpture of fire, like it wasn't a flame at all, just something wearing the shape of one. Maeve sat on the floor with her back against the wall, arms wrapped tightly around her knees. The house was colder now, but sweat clung to her skin. The parlor wall seemed closer than before. Breathing felt wrong, like the air was used and stale, like it had been in someone else's lungs first. Iris paced in tight circles, biting her nails to the quick. "We should have left the second that candle sparked. This place, something's off." Jay didn't respond. He stood near the table, staring at the flame like it had whispered something to him that no one else heard. Levi was by the staircase, silent, watching the upstairs landing. The longer they were inside, the stranger things felt. The layout of the house kept shifting in their memories. The hallway to the kitchen had vanished. Maeve was sure there'd been a door under the stairs, but now it was just a blank wall covered in peeling green wallpaper. And then the wax started. At first it was a drop. It fell from the ceiling and landed on Iris's shoulder with a soft hiss. She cried out and slapped it away, the spot on her hoodie already stiff with cooling wax. More began to drip, from nowhere, from everywhere. Thick amber drops that smelled sweet and sickly, like burnt sugar and rotting meat. They slid down the walls, across the floor, forming tiny rivers that oozed toward the candle as if pulled by a magnetic pulse. Jay finally spoke. His voice was flat. "He's awake." Maeve looked up sharply. "What?" Jay turned toward them slowly. "The Candleman, he's watching us." "No, Jay, stop!" Iris snapped. Jay smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I saw him upstairs. He has fire where his eyes should be, like little screaming mouths." Maeve stood, her legs trembling. "This isn't funny." "I'm not joking," Jay said calmly. "He doesn't move. He doesn't need to. He's in the corners, always just barely out of sight." A creaking sound echoed from above them, long and slow, like weight shifting on old wood. Levi stepped back from the stairs. "We need to find the door. We need to get out." They moved as a group now, terrified and silent, stepping around the puddles of wax as the house groaned with every breath they took. The shadows twisted unnaturally across the walls, stretching sideways like they were trying to touch them. Maeve turned a corner and froze. The wallpaper here was torn away in long clawed strips. Beneath it, the wood was shredded, deep gouges, some nearly a foot long. Something had clawed the walls from the inside. She ran her fingers over them, heart pounding. Behind her, Jay whispered, "They tried to climb out." She turned. "What?" Jay blinked slowly. "The ones before us, the walls, they close in if you stay too long. That's why they left their nails behind." Maeve looked again. Deep inside one of the gouges, something gleamed. She squinted. It was a tooth, a human tooth fused into the wood. She stumbled back, her breath hitching in her throat. Suddenly, the lights dimmed, not flickered, but dimmed as if the house had sucked in a breath. At the far end of the hallway, the mirror they'd passed earlier had changed. Now, it was pulsing. The glass rippled, and behind it, eyes, dozens of them, candle wicks burning at their cores, watching from the other side. Maeve screamed. Jay smiled. And upstairs, barely audible through the floorboards, something began to drag itself forward. Thump. Scrape. Thump. Scrape. Levi grabbed Maeve's hand. "We have to go, now." They ran, not upstairs, not into the parlor, toward the only place left. The basement. The basement door groaned open like a rusted mouth. The hallway behind them warped and narrowed as they crossed the threshold, walls bending in unnatural angles, doorways vanishing, shadows stretching thin like skin pulled tight over bone. Levi went first, flashlight in hand. The beam barely pierced the darkness. The stairwell below looked like a throat dripping with candle wax and shadows. Maeve hesitated at the top step. Jay whispered, "He likes it when you hesitate." She didn't look at him. She couldn't. They descended. The temperature dropped with every creak of the wood. Wax clung to the railing, slick and soft. Maeve's fingers slipped, and when she wiped them on her jeans, she saw it wasn't just wax. It was red. At the bottom of the stairs, the basement opened into a wide stone chamber. Low ceiling, walls cracked with age, the air heavy and sour like burnt honey. The floor was uneven, covered in wax puddles, old bone fragments, and something worse. Tables. Lined across the room, each one held a shape, covered, still. Jay wandered toward them before anyone could stop him. They used to be people. Jay, don't... Iris reached for him. The table closest to her twitched. Maeve grabbed Levi's arm. We need to go. But the door was gone. Behind them, just cold stone wall. The shapes on the tables began to move. One sat up slowly, wax cracking off like old scabs. Its face was featureless, half melted, but its eyes were open, blinking, confused, alive. It reached toward Iris with fingers fused together, groaning like something being born backward. Another figure rolled off the next table, hitting the floor with a wet thud, its waxed limbs twitching violently. The room erupted in grotesque movement, moaning, stretching, limbs peeling away from waxy casings. They ran, no direction, just away. They scattered like rats through the winding corridors that shouldn't have been there. The house had changed again. Maeve ran blindly through a narrow hall lit by flickering candles embedded in the walls. Their flames hissed as she passed, casting shadows that followed her instead of staying behind. When she reached the end of the corridor, there was no sign of the others. Only a door, small, child-sized. She opened it. Inside was a room she should never have seen, a nursery, but not for children. The cribs were lined with wax instead of blankets. Each held a person, miniature people posed like sleeping infants, waxed over in silence. One had its mouth sewn shut with wick thread. Another was crying, but no sound came, just a soft flicker of flame from inside its throat. Maeve backed away. The door behind her closed. Somewhere else in the house. Iris stood in front of a vanity. The mirror showed her reflection, but younger, innocent, holding a candle. The flame flickered once. Her reflection smiled. She did not. Then, slowly, her reflection lifted the candle and pressed the flame into its own eye. The wax boiled on the glass. Levi found himself in a corridor lined with photographs. Each frame held a portrait of someone familiar. Friends, neighbors, classmates. Each one had wax poured over their faces. The wax glistened. One of the photos was of Maeve. She was smiling, but her mouth had no teeth, just a wick sticking out between her lips, and beneath her name, something had been scrawled into the frame. She lit the candle. Jay sat motionless in a room filled with smoke. Shapes circled him, tall, faceless, barely visible in the haze. He muttered to himself, fingers digging into the wax-drenched carpet. They're inside the walls now. He's showing me. I saw the first one go willingly. I think that was me. And then, as if all at once, the house breathed in. A long, shuddering inhale. The candle in the parlor flickered. And one by one, the flames in the house began to go out. The air was thicker down here, not just colder, heavier, like something pressed down on Maeve's chest as she moved. The floor beneath her shoes stuck with every step, tacky and soft, like she was walking across a room where flesh had melted into the tile. She didn't know how she got separated. One moment she was screaming Iris's name in the wax-drenched nursery, the next, here. The basement again, but deeper, older. A new passage, wet and pulsing with amber candlelight, had opened like a throat behind the cribs. It led her downward into a place that should never have existed. She passed stone archways where wax dripped like rain, and sconces made from twisted human spines burned with blue flames. Something hissed in the walls. Something else whimpered. Then she found it. The morgue. Rows and rows of slab tables stretched before her, each one layered with wax-coated forms. Faces lost beneath smooth masks of flesh-colored wax, hands curled as if reaching for something they'd never grab. Some still moved, just barely, like they were dreaming. The walls were shelves lined with heads waxed and labeled. The eyes were open on many of them, but there were no irises, just wicks sticking from the sockets. Some had burned down to black. A low groan echoed behind her. Maeve turned slowly. One of the figures on the slab was sitting up. The wax cracked and flaked from its joints as it moved, skin stretching beneath like something alive had been preserved wrong. It opened its mouth to scream, but no sound came, just a puff of smoke and the faint hiss of burning wax. Maeve backed up, tripping over a length of hardened wick trailing across the floor. Her elbow struck a metal tray and sent it clattering to the ground. The noise stirred them. All of them. One by one, the wax bodies shuddered, limbs twitching, cracking, rising. Some were missing jaws. Others had multiple arms, like limbs had been fused together in the melting. Maeve turned and ran. Down the hallway, past the heads, past the shelves of teeth and wax fingers. Something grabbed her ankle from the ground, a wax child with hollow sockets where eyes should be. She kicked. It squealed not like a child, but like a kettle boiling over. She kept running, her lungs burned. The morgue felt endless. That's when she saw them, Levi and Iris, ahead in the distance, half shrouded in fog that clung to the ground like mist over graves. "Maeve!" Iris's voice broke through. She was bruised, smeared with wax, one sleeve torn and burned. Levi clutched a crowbar, eyes hollow and frightened but focused. Maeve reached them, gasping, just as the bodies behind her began to scream. Not human, not animal. Just sound, fire screaming. They ran together this time. Back up the staircase they weren't sure had been there before. Every step groaned like something beneath the stairs was pushing up, trying to burst through. At the top they slammed the door, but it didn't shut all the way. Levi jammed the crowbar into the frame. "It won't hold for long," he breathed. Maeve leaned against the wall, chest heaving. "Jay, we have to find Jay." Iris nodded slowly. "And the candle?" Maeve blinked. "What about it?" Iris looked up, her voice trembled. "We blew it out before, back in the parlor, but it's lit again." Levi's face went pale. Maeve turned. At the end of the hallway, far in the dark, the candle flame swayed gently, flickering, and beside it stood the Candleman, his body impossibly tall. Dripping, mouth open in a molten scream, the flames on his head hissed louder as he stepped forward. Shadows fled from him, the walls wept wax. Maeve's hand clutched Iris's. They didn't move. Not yet. The house changed again. They didn't feel it happen. No shudder, no sound. Just a shift like waking from one nightmare into another. The edges of reality curling and softening like melting wax. Maeve turned the corner of the hallway, and Iris was gone. Iris. Only silence. She called again, louder, then turned to Levi, but he was gone too. The walls were closing. The air thickened, soupy with smoke and heat. The floor beneath her feet rippled like something alive was pulsing beneath the boards. Shadows slithered, darting out of her peripheral vision, always just out of reach. Maeve's voice cracked as she shouted their names. She ran blindly. Hallways looped, doors disappeared. The house had separated them again. Iris's world stretched long and narrow, a hallway lined with flickering candles, the same hallway, over and over. Every door she opened led back to it. Every time she turned, she was back at the beginning. But something changed subtly each time. The carpet grew redder, the walls pulsed, the shadows behind the candles grew taller. On the fifth loop, she saw herself, standing at the far end. The other Iris wasn't moving, wasn't blinking. She was holding something. A candle. The flame flickered. The real Iris's nose began to bleed. On the seventh loop, she passed a mirror on the wall that hadn't been there before. She looked in and saw herself melting. No eyes, no mouth, just hot wax dribbling from sockets. Her skin slipping in strips, her rib cage exposed, each bone a little candle. Tiny flames danced on her clavicles. She screamed, and her reflection didn't. It only smiled. Levi found himself in the old library, or at least something like it. The shelves were warped, the books covered in wax instead of dust. Some were fused shut, others bled when he opened them. One book whispered his name over and over and over. Levi, Levi, you lit it, didn't you? He dropped it. He turned in a slow circle. The room had no windows, only shelves, endless. At the center, a table. On it, 4 candles, each with a name carved at the base. Maeve, Iris, Jay, Levi. Only one was still burning. His. He reached out slowly, compelled, not choosing. Before he could touch it, a waxy hand reached up from beneath the table and gripped his wrist. He screamed. The flame flared and went out. Back in the hallway, Maeve fell to her knees. The floor was too hot to touch. The walls were humming. The candle at the far end flickered violently, as if in warning. Then footsteps. Slow, deliberate, wet. He emerged from the corner. The Candleman. His limbs were too long, his head alight. A dozen tiny flames danced across his melted skull, eyes black pits glowing with inner fire. His body cracked and hissed with every movement, like wax over bone, half melted and pulsing. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. He raised one hand, and the flames along the hallway flared up in response. Maeve screamed, scrambled backward, and crashed into someone. Levi. He grabbed her hand, his eyes wide, blood crusted at the corner of his mouth. We need to run, now. From the far end of the hallway, the Candleman tilted his head. Slowly, the flames behind him began to crawl along the walls. Alive. Maeve and Levi ran, turned corners, blinded by heat, by fear, by smoke. Doors appeared where there were none. And finally, they saw her. Iris. Curled on the floor in front of a melted mirror, rocking, whispering, I never lit it, I never lit it, I never. Maeve grabbed her, pulled her up. You didn't. We didn't. He's trying to make us forget. A high-pitched whine filled the air. The house shook. A deep voice, not spoken, but inside their bones, whispered, You are already made of wax. The candle in Maeve's pocket flickered to life on its own. They found him in the attic. Jay, or what was left of him. He sat cross-legged in the corner, face to the wall, surrounded by candle stubs and long trails of hardened wax that had dripped from the ceiling like veins. He didn't turn when they entered. His fingers twitched in his lap, sticky and slow, like he was sculpting something only he could see. Maeve stepped forward. Jay? He didn't respond. She knelt beside him. That's when she saw it. The wax had spread across his back like a growth, thick and pale, crawling up his neck like it was fusing with his spine. His shirt had torn apart around it. From under the wax, his skin looked translucent, like candlelight flickering through it. Jay, what happened? He turned. His eyes had no whites anymore, just flickering flame-shaped pupils, candle wicks. He opened his mouth, but no words came, only a dry, shuddering crackle, like wax bending in a flame. Then, finally, a whisper. He's part of me. Maeve backed away. Iris stepped closer. Jay, it's us. You're okay. We can get out. We can... He shook his head slowly. Out? He rasped. There is no out. There's only through. He touched his chest. The wax. It remembers. Levi moved toward him, but Jay recoiled, crawling backward like an animal. You can't help me, he hissed. You can't help any of us. The room trembled. A low groan echoed through the rafters. The floorboards rippled. From the walls, wax began to bleed, thick and fast, like the house itself was weeping. Jay stood, trembling, eyes burning brighter. He screamed. And the wax on the ceiling fell in sheets, raining down around them in burning strips. Go! Maeve shouted. They bolted. The stairs down were warped and soft underfoot, like walking on a melting corpse. Wax flowed down the walls in ropes. Candles burst to life one by one as they passed, each flame whispering their names. Maeve, Iris, Levi, Maeve, Maeve, Maeve. They reached the second-floor hallway. The parlor was below them now. The door was open. Inside, the candle on the table was burning again, the same one. Still whole. Untouched. Waiting. Jay's voice boomed through the house, low, warped, distant, and everywhere. He wants to be born again, through us, through you. Maeve fell to her knees. The wax in her pocket had melted, soaked through her jeans. It pulsed with warmth. Levi dropped beside her, pale and shaking. I don't know what's real anymore. I don't know what day it is, or if this is a memory, or a dream, or... Maeve grabbed his hand. It's now, she said, breathless. It's us. It's real, and we're not done yet. A shape appeared at the top of the stairs. Tall. Melting. Watching. The candleman stood motionless, wax dripping from his fingertips, his face a scream held in silence, and in his chest a small candle burned inside his ribs. A heartbeat of fire. He stepped forward. The stairs didn't creak, they groaned. Each footstep made the walls warp. The floor burned. Maeve looked at Iris. We run. No, Iris said softly. We finish it. She stepped into the parlor. The candle flared up. The house began to tremble, and behind them, Jay's voice whispered through the firelight. Blow it out, and he'll come anyway. The walls were bleeding, not metaphorically. Thick, amber wax poured from every crack, bubbling and hissing as it touched the floor. The house groaned in agony, beams bending and moaning like the bones of something ancient waking for the last time. Maeve stood at the edge of the parlor, the candle still burned. Perfect. Untouched. Waiting. Iris held her crowbar like a crucifix, breath short and sharp, her eyes locked on the Candleman, who now stood just feet from the threshold. He didn't move, he didn't have to. He was already inside them. His presence was everywhere, pressing into their thoughts, slipping under their skin like warm wax filling a mold. Maeve could feel him in her teeth, in her heartbeat. Her memories were fraying. Was she really here, or just another name carved at the base of a candle? Jay stood behind the table now, or the thing that used to be Jay. His face had split in places where the wax didn't hold. His mouth stretched too wide. His pupils flickered. Flames danced behind his ribs. "I see it all now," he whispered. He was never a man. Not really, just hunger wearing skin. A hunger that burns. He used to preserve bodies. Now he collects souls. He raised his hands. They were dripping. "Let him in." "Jay," Maeve said, stepping forward, "we can still stop this." His head twitched violently to the side. "Stop it!" His voice fractured, half scream, half sob. "There's nothing to stop. There's only melting." The Candleman entered the room. All the lights went out. Only the candle burned, the flame flickered, and behind Maeve, he appeared. Right behind her. She felt the heat first, a sudden boiling pulse of heat against her spine, then the breath, the soundless, steaming exhale of something not alive. She didn't turn, she couldn't, if the flame flickered and you turned around. "He took you." Iris screamed. The crowbar flew through the air, striking the Candleman across the shoulder. It stuck, it didn't cut. The wax absorbed it. He turned slowly and lifted a hand. Iris froze. Her body trembled, then lifted off the ground. Strings of wax poured from the floor, coiling around her ankles, wrists, throat. She gasped, twitching, limbs jerking like a puppet burning from the inside. Maeve ran toward her, the wax pulled tighter. Iris's mouth opened in a silent scream as wax poured from her eyes. Levi tackled Maeve from behind, dragging her back. "No! It wants you to look!" "But she..." "If you look, it's over." She screamed, struggling in his grip. Jay walked closer to the flame. He bent over the candle. "Do you want to know how it ends?" he whispered. "It doesn't. He just keeps burning." Maeve closed her eyes. Then, a snap. Jay screamed. The table shattered. Maeve opened her eyes. Jay was gone. So was the candle. Only a trail of wax smoke floated in the air where it had been, and the Candleman was walking toward her. Each step melted the floor beneath him. Behind Maeve, Levi whimpered, "We don't get out." She looked around. The house was collapsing, walls caving in, wax flooding from every angle. But there, behind the staircase, a door. It hadn't been there before. A door carved with the image of a flame and the outline of 4 faces. 1 burned out, 3 remaining. She grabbed Levi, pulled Iris, her face half covered in wax, still blinking, still alive. They ran. The Candleman reached forward, wax tendrils slithering from his palms. The house screamed. They dove through the door. And everything went white. Epilogue. The morning after, Ashwood Hill was silent, the manor gone. In its place, a scorched field, melted black earth, no structure, no door, no wax. Maeve, Levi, and Iris stood at the edge of it, their clothes torn, skin blistered, eyes empty. They didn't speak. They couldn't. Something inside them was missing. Or maybe added. That night back in Maeve's room, she sat at her desk and stared into the mirror. Her reflection blinked, a beat too late, and smiled. Then behind her, on the windowsill, a candle appeared, already lit, and in the flame, a figure moved, tall, melting, smiling. The end. Or is it?